Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Let's just address the elephant in the room. This pose right here is not something I was used to doing. It is not a normal pose for me. It's actually anti-athletic. And my publicist continues to think it's a good picture to use. The outfit didn't fit, actually, when I did that. They had to pin stuff back here, other stuff split. There was some weird stuff going on. So they actually got the snapshot mid-perfect pose. I'm really not sure what I'm doing there. But I know everybody's looking at it like, what? You know, because I do it every time. So let's just address that. It was not my idea. It was the photographer guy's idea to do that. So, but I appreciate you having me here. I'll keep the jokes limited. Obviously, from what I heard, we're not really laughing a whole lot today. So keep the comedy down a little bit. But I do appreciate the panel. What an awesome job you guys did. You actually kind of nailed my entire speech, so I was going to just stand up here and joke around, but I don't think it's a good idea. So I'll try to just kind of almost cover what they said and kind of give my perspective on it. I played, like Blaine was saying, I was a part of 4 World Series. 3 of them were world champions. One of them is the ring I'm wearing. I have to lift weights to carry it. It's very heavy and very nice. It's better than my wife's wedding ring. She's not real happy about that. But a lot of people say, well, what did you do? Like, what happened? How do you win world championships? Because for a lot of people, that's a very hard thing to do in baseball. If you've watched a lot of baseball games, there's not a lot of teams that win it consistently. There's not a lot of teams that can win back-to-back, and very few are dynasty-type levels. There's the Yankees. Then there's, Cardinals. Any Cardinal fans here? No? Okay, good. You've had some weird goes. You've won a lot, but you can't win them because the Braves have won like one time in like 100 years. So they're having a hard time, even though they've had great teams, right? And so the Giants all of a sudden come in out of nowhere. We haven't won a World Series since like the 50s, and that was in New York. We had the Giants fans that were like on their deathbeds that have been like Giants fans their whole life, never thought they'd see a World Series happen, and here we are. We nailed 3 of them in 5 years, right? Out of nowhere. And we were called the Misfits. We were called we were called gnats. We were called cockroaches. We were called everything because we don't go away, right? We weren't necessarily the best team, but we always walked out with a ring. And in 2010, 49 out of 50 states said the Texas Rangers were going to win. The only state that believed in us was our own state, thank God. Like California, and we beat them, and then everybody said, oh no, Detroit's going to get to you. They're too big. They've got too many thumpers. We swept them. We beat them in all 4 games. They never even won a game. And then in the last one against Kansas City, no one really wanted to watch. No one from the East Coast cared about the Giants, and no one really cared about Kansas City. And if it wasn't St. Louis, no one was going to watch, right, in the Midwest. So, and we had to go to 7 with them to win. And everybody kept saying, how do these guys that don't have like 100 wins or 98 wins, we had 87, 89 wins, how do they win in these pressure situations? And I've been on a lot of different scenarios, and in high pressure situations, I feel like there's a few things that happen to people. Most people, when they're in a high pressure situation, as you guys have all been in and probably continue to be in, it causes you to feel trapped, right? When the pressure increases, all of a sudden the confidence in who you are tends to deteriorate. You tend to back up because high pressure. It's a trap situation because the quality of who you are gets tested. The confidence in who you are gets tested, and a lot of people start second guessing themselves. And when you feel trapped, bad things happen because you make pressure packed decisions. You panic. You make poor decisions a lot of times. A lot of times you make decisions that's outside of maybe what you're supposed to make because you make a desperation decision here, and it tends to go backwards. And we heard about it from the panel. Some of these decisions that you have to make in transformational leadership, if you tend to either just make a bad decision or not make any decision, right? You tend to, I'll just do what we've always done. Problem is, in this world, to have a successful business and to be a successful leader, you have to move forward. You have to become somebody. We call it in baseball winning, right? Like, you got to win or no one's going to come to the games. You got to look like you're actually producing on the field. And I played a sport for 20 years that it was a what have you done for me lately deal. It was like you could win one day and then you're booed the next. It's a very tough situation to be in. Baseball is a very high pressure packed deal. And honestly, I'm a high school educated guy that played in the dirt for a living. That's one of the reasons why I don't have slides, because they distract me. It's like squirrel, I can't have all this stuff, man. But I was not able to always succeed in my numbers in the playoffs. I'm going to pat myself on the back, but there's a point to it. People would always ask me, like, what happened in the playoffs? I have the number. I'm like the record holder for the lowest ERA from a left-handed reliever in the history of baseball, and the only one that's got a better one than me is Mariano Rivera. And people, well, thanks. Yeah, that wasn't what I'm looking for, so you don't have to feel, that's respectful, but that's not what I'm looking for. But my numbers weren't, I didn't have Mariano Rivera season numbers. I didn't have a 1.6 or anything. And people were always like, what did you do differently when the pressure was on? And I learned things through the game of baseball. And I learned what not to do, and I learned what good teams do in pressure situations. I had a manager at the San Francisco Giants, Bruce Bochy, who's one of the greatest leaders of men that I've ever met in my life. And I learned a lot from him and what I'm going to talk about today. And there are so many things that go into pressure situations, and leaders can handle themselves in pressure situations if they have a certain environment. And if you can create a high-trust environment like we heard about, and you have the ability to have the right mindset, you will be able to pivot. And when I say pivot, that's just my word for adjust. That's my word for backup plans. That's my word for always having a plan for every situation. Because in pressure situations, most people don't know how to pivot. They lock up. Like I said, they feel trapped, they lock up, and they don't know what to do. And then they got to go hire someone that can figure it out, right? And then you have employees. When you're a leader and you've got people under you, or we call them teammates. When you got people under you that they don't trust you because you don't make quality decisions, because you panic, you react, you yell, you get angry, you use fear. I played on teams where I didn't have a high trust leader. I had a leader that dictated. I played on management teams where they used fear tactics to scare me into doing something, thinking that would work. If you don't do this, you're not going to have a job. If you don't clean it up, you're not going to get this. You're going to lose your role. You better do this. You better do that. There was all these pressure-packed situations, and the leader did not know how to handle himself, so he used fear instead of encouragement and trust to try to motivate you. And that'll never work. People don't do well when there's fear. People panic. People want to quit. People disrespect. People don't honor you. They don't want to work hard for you when you use fear tactics because they don't like you. They like high-trust leaders. And we heard what high-trust leaders do. High-trust leaders, man, they encourage. High-trust leaders, they know the individual. Man, Bruce Bochy, man, one of the things that I really appreciated about him was he had an open-door policy. If you had an issue, you could go to him anytime you wanted to. You're not scared to knock on the door. You weren't scared to, hey, I got to give an opinion and I'm afraid to give it because I'm afraid the guy's going to yell at me or fire me or tell me to get out of the room, or you start throwing statistics. I had a manager, and I got to refrain from saying some managers' names because I don't really like to, when I mention the bad, tell their names. When I mention the good, I'll say Bruce Bochy. When I mention the bad, I just won't talk about my managers, right? But I had a manager one time. I walked in and I was like, hey, man, I don't think you know what you're doing, right? And he's like, what do you mean I don't know what I'm doing? I said, well, I just don't think you're running the bullpen right. You're going to burn us out, man. And he's like, yeah, I got 1,200. He started giving me all these statistics about who he was. And then he just sat there and looked at me. I said, that's great. I think you got lucky. So I don't think you understand, you know what you're doing with the bullpen because you're going to burn us out. And I know your last bullpens of some of the other teams you've been on, and you broke guys down. You've got a lot of injuries. And he's like, you don't think I know what I'm doing with you? I said, no, I don't. He's like, look. He labeled S, SV, L, like extra, and I'm like, what is that? He goes, well, that's save, short, long relief, and extra innings. I'm like, that's every role of the bullpen. That's not a role. I can't excel if I don't actually know what I'm doing. Who am I to you? And that's what good leaders do in high-trust environments, man. They get to know their people and understand where they can succeed. What is this person's strengths? What's his or her strengths? And where can they excel? Because that's what's going to get them to be able to be confident in who they are. And they're going to trust their leaders when they believe that their leaders are putting them in situations that's going to allow them to succeed, not throw them to the wolves. Because that doesn't always work. Rarely does it work. And I don't trust my leader if I don't think he knows me and knows how I can best succeed. And Bruce, man, him and I had disagreements, several times throughout the course of my career with him. It was always an open door policy, and he had the same line. Jeremy, I don't care if you come and talk to me. You can question me. I'll explain myself. But if you don't really want the answer, don't ask the question, right? And I respected that because he was upfront and honest with me on that. But I wanted to know where I stood. And he would handle me a certain way. Now he'd handle someone else a different way. And when leaders start sitting there and they try to handle everybody the same way, not as human beings, but as robots, you're going to lose them. They're not going to trust you. But if you start figuring out how to talk to them and how to motivate them, whether it be encouraging them in front of their peers or sending thank you notes or letting them right before a situation, give them an encouraging word that you know works, or get to know their families and ask how their families are, however it motivates them, that's important. And in 2010, I was facing the Phillies in Game 6 of the NLCS, and I hadn't pitched. I had just had a little baby boy. I had a baby. My wife, it kind of drove her a little bit nuts, but we had a baby on every single World Series year. She never really got to enjoy the playoffs because she was, doing baby stuff, right? Like we had milk everywhere. We had all kinds of stuff working, right? We didn't have to join the fertility deal, man. I mean, I looked at her wrong. She's pregnant, right? So, I mean, that's how it was, man. So, so it was like one of those situations where every single time we were in the World Series, we had a baby, and the Giants wanted to put her on payroll. My GM's like, hey, look, we will pay her to have a baby every year because they're all right. Hello. So anyhow, so they literally so my wife, she just had we just had our second baby boy, right? And we were sitting there and we were literally I had not pitched in a few days. I didn't have a last couple weeks of the season, and all of a sudden he wasn't throwing me, right? And I'm sitting there, and for the first round of the playoffs against Atlanta, I didn't pitch. I did not like him. We weren't getting along. I looked at he didn't put me in when I should have been in, and I finally went up to him and I'm like, what is your deal? And he's like, Jeremy, I need you to trust me. And I've had history with Bruce, and he has always put me in when he thought it was the most successful times because he cared about me being successful. And I said, man, I do trust you, but I don't understand. He's like, trust me. When the situation comes up, I'm going to put you in, and it's going to help everybody out. You've got to trust me. And I said, and I remember sitting there for 10 days, and all of a sudden he put me in a game against the Phillies, and I did okay, but it wasn't a high-pressure situation that I enjoyed being in. And finally, in Game 6, our starter got thrown out of the game for hitting Chase Utley on purpose. Unfortunately, you don't hit a guy on purpose in a situation where you could lose and go home, right? Well, he did. He got angry, and he hit Chase Utley, and we got into a huge fight. And we went to charge, and we all went to run out there, and my bullpen coach pulled me back and said, hey, you're going in this game. You can't go argue. You can't go fight. You can't go get into this. You got to stay here and warm up. Phillies fans are not exactly the nicest people, and they said stuff to me that, like, it was hurtful, man. I've heard a lot of stuff, but this stuff here, this is like, I kind of still am offended a little bit about it, They said mean things. I didn't even know some of the stuff existed that they called me, for not going out and fighting with my team. But I warmed up, and Bruce called me into the game, and it was runners on first and second with no outs. And I remember Bruce. He hands me the ball, and he puts the ball in my hand, and he looked at me, and he said, "This is what I've been waiting for. You hold this right here. We will win this game, and we'll go to the World Series. But this is what I need you for. This is who you are to me." And he goes, I believe in you right here, right now. And he knows I haven't thrown that much. And I just looked at him, I said, thank you. And I remember striking out the first Ryan Howard on 3 pitches, getting the next guy to pop up short to right, and then ground out to short. And we got out of the inning. I pitched the full next inning, and we went on to win and go to the World Series. And after that game, Bruce said to the media, he said, if it wasn't for Jeremy, we would not be going to the World Series. And let me tell you something. I don't need a lot of that stuff, but it does feel good when your manager says that in front of 2 million people. I mean, you go from being, I feel pretty good. Well, Bruce just said you're the reason he went to the World Series. Yeah, I feel pretty good, you strut a little bit, man. Like, I'm turkey hunting right now, and it reminds me of how I was, you can walk around, you get your chest out a little bit, and it makes you feel so good, but man, I trusted that man because of that. I trusted him. He went up in a whole different environment from me. And I look at him now as way different, knowing now that he has my full trust that when he puts me in a game, it is to make me successful. And so whenever I go into a game, I know that this is the reason why. He wants me to succeed and I can help a team. And I am here because I am believed in by my leader, and I trust him for that. And I'll excel because of it. And the pressure goes way down when I can trust my leader, when he knows me. The other thing, I'm a reliever. I have a reliever mindset. The starters get paid all the money. They get to golf every 4 days, for 4 days straight, and they pitch once a week and get paid tons of money. We got to wear it every day. We get booed. We're a scapegoat, right? We're never the winner unless we tank the game, and we're never the savior of the game because we're not closers. We're that 7th, 8th inning guy that the only reason we get recognized is because we blew it, right? We tanked it. It's your fault. Go home. You stink. You're old. Retire. I heard it all. But when you do your job, it's like, oh, whatever. The starter did great, and the closer did a good job sealing up the game, right? But relievers, for me, they have a mindset. They're some of the most mentally tough individuals on that field. They're also the weirdest. We tend to be a little off our rocker, right? We got weird ones, beards and long hair and mohawks and all kinds of different stuff going. But the reason why I think we are one of the most important keys to a baseball team is because of our mindset. And in pressure situations, the ones that excel, the bullpens that excel, have an ability to excel a certain way. In 2012, we were down 2-0 to the Cincinnati Reds. They have not lost 3 games in a row in the entire year. And we walk in, Cincinnati fans were already sitting there saying, what are we going to do to celebrate? We got this. We're going to go to the next round, first time in the NLCS and who knows how long, blah, blah. And we just sat there, and I kind of chuckled because I was like, man, I think we know when it's over, and it ain't over yet because she hadn't sung, right? So it's not over. And we were down 2-0. The reason why we won those series, I think we had good pitching, but we had a solid bullpen. We had 4 or 5 guys that went in and did the job at long, short. Anytime we were called, we did our job. We were then down 3-1 to the St. Louis Cardinals. We came back and beat them 4-3, went to the World Series, and then our bullpen was a big part of sealing up a 4-game sweep at Detroit. But bullpen guys have a mindset that a lot of people need to have as leaders, and that is understanding the controllables and uncontrollables in your organization or within your team. Because a lot of people, when they crack under pressure, they focus on the uncontrollable. Well, here's my problem. I have this problem. I don't know what to do with this problem. No. Your problem is an uncontrollable. That's already there. You can't do anything about it. There's only areas you have to focus on the controllables. That's in life. And so many people focus so much on the negative and the uncontrollable that they can never make a decision that's going to be adequate to providing opportunities for their business to succeed or their teams to win. See, relievers, we have a mentality of I don't focus on the uncontrollable. When I come into the game, there could be guys on first and second, bases loaded. I've gotten brought in the middle of a count one time. I got brought into the game one time where it was a 2-1 count on the hitter because Bochy just didn't like it and says, I'm going to bring somebody else in to see what he can do, even though it's the middle of a count. I don't know the situation that I'm going to get put in. But what I do know is 90% of my situations are high pressure. It's game on the line scenarios, and he's asking me to take care of it. He's asking another one of my bullpen mates to take care of it. We were labeled the core 4. Javi Lopez, Romo, Casilla, and myself. We were the core 4. We had some of the best statistics of a relief core in the history of the game for like 5 years in a row. And we got our job done because we knew what each of us could do, and we understand how to handle controllables. The uncontrollable is I cannot control the situation of guys on base when I get brought in the game. That's already there. I can't control, frankly, if the hitter swings at the ball. I really can't. I can't tell a hitter, please swing at this and roll it over to short for a double play to make me look good, right? I can't do that. I've thrown balls right down the middle and he's popped it up. I've thrown balls on the black and he's hit a ball down the line to score 2. And fans are like, you threw a ball down the middle, got to pop up, man, you pitched great. Actually, no, I didn't. I got lucky, but I make a perfect pitch and I get beat, I stink, and I need to go home, right? You let him hit the ball. Yeah, because that was my idea. I wanted him to hit the ball right there. Fans, you guys are sometimes I think you guys live in a fantasy world that we're computers and we're robots and we're like, I'm going to be a Nintendo guy and I'm going to throw a ball right here. Why are you letting him hit the ball? I don't know. Maybe I felt bad for him. Hey, he's contract year. He's got a family, I mean, what do you mean, why did I let him? I'm not perfect. But the reality of it is, the most of the times that I succeeded is I came through because of the fact that I understood what a controllable was. And my controllable was I have to execute a certain pitch. And I don't care if there's bases loaded, if there's a runner on first, if there's on first and second. What is the most effective pitch that I can execute to get statistically the best result I can get? That's what I'm going to focus on. How do I put myself in a position to be able to get myself to throw that pitch? How did I prepare that day to be able to make a pitch in a big situation? How did I keep my mind clear? And how did I visualize? How did I do certain things that allowed me to be the most present person I can possibly be in a high pressure situation, to be able to focus on just the controllable, not the uncontrollable? And that's life. If any of you here play golf, that's golf. I mean, you can't control a lot of those things. There's a lot of uncontrollables in golf. That is what makes good businesses succeed, is they focus on the solutions and not the problems. And the other thing that we do really, really well in high-pressure situations is we know how to pivot, because we eliminate something in our mindset, have-tos. When you get into a situation where you have to do something, that's a bad situation, and that's when most people fail. When you say, I have to do this, everything gets tight. Decisions, thought processes are unclear. You panic, you become workaholics. You don't take any free time for yourself because you have to do something. And I always told some of these young relievers, you don't have to do anything. Well, what if the base is loaded and there's a 3-2 count? Walk him. Well, but then a run scores. Okay. You didn't have to throw a strike. You want to throw a strike. Probably want to be successful if you actually deliver a strike. But you don't have to do anything. The sun is going to come up tomorrow. Things happen. I don't want to be in a situation where I have to do anything. I want to do this. I want to execute my pitch. I want to make a good business decision. I want my business to be successful, but I don't have to be. That have to is a very, very tough thing to put yourself into. And there will be psychologists out there that will tell you, if you're in a have-to environment, you're in a dangerous place in life. Because have-tos aren't good. In 2014, I'll sum it up here. All this came together for all of us. In Game 7 of the World Series, I had developed, a high trust in my leader, Bruce Bochy, to be able to put me in situations where I can succeed and tell me the controllables that I can deal with. And he put me in environments where the controllables were high success controllables for me. And I was able to pivot. In 2014, I pitched in every single inning of the playoffs except for the first inning. I pitched in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th innings of the playoffs. I was one of the only pitchers in 120 years that have ever done that. And Bruce came up to me and he said, the reason I was able to do that is because you understand how to adjust. And you can live up to those moments. And you can put yourself in those situations and say, I'm not going to panic. This is the controllable. This is what I have to be ready for. And you can adjust, pivot. You can make decisions. You can have backup plans. And when you know your people and you know the people that are under you and they trust you, when a situation hits the fan, you're never in a have to, because you can always make an adjustment because you have other people around you. 2014, I got put in the 2nd inning of the World Series in Game 7. Bruce Bochy came up to me before the game and said, I had to pitch in a knee brace because I had a blown out MCL. And he said, I need you to put your knee brace on at the beginning of the game. I'm like, why? He's like, because I'm going to put you in like the 2nd inning. And I'm like, Hudson's pitching. He's like, yeah, I know. He's old. I don't know how far he's going to go in the game. And he's not feeling very good. I know the Kansas City Royals don't want to face Bumgarner. They said it in the media. Bruce pays attention to everything. He said they do not want to face Bum. Thank God they don't have to face Bum again. He just threw a CG shutout against them in Game 6 or 5, right? And they didn't want to face him because I know they don't want to face him. It's his bullpen day. I want him in. We're going to flip the script, and we're going to put the bullpen in first, and I'm going to start Bum the second half of the game. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, so be ready. 2nd inning came up. He said, if Hudson struggles at all, you're in the game. 2nd inning, I got put in that game. And I finished the 2nd, pitched the 3rd, and pitched the 4th. That's the most pitches and innings I've thrown in my career as a reliever, and my arm was going to fall off. Trust me, I was hurt. But it's Game 7. There's no tomorrow. You don't have Game 8, right? It's it. So you pull the stops out. Bum came in the 5th inning, sealed up the win. We won the World Series. We won the World Series because we have a manager we trust in. We won the World Series because we have people and teammates that can trust their leader to put them in successful situations. So when I got brought in the game, I wasn't like, what are you thinking? How am I going to do this? I was like, no, he wants me here. He thought about it. He wanted me in this game, and he trusts me. and it allows me to excel in that pressure situation. That was the biggest game I had ever pitched in my career. The fun thing was I started with my career with the Kansas City Royals. I left there getting traded, hating the game of baseball. Hated it. If you want to read about that, get my book. There's the plug. So, but I ended up, my career pretty much ended on that field. That same field that I hated baseball, I actually ended up walking off as a champion because of people that believed in me. And they knew what it meant, and I trusted them. And when they came up to me and they said, Jeremy, my wife did not have a baby that year. She had a horse baby, so she kind of counted it. Her horse had a baby, but she did not have a baby. She was standing with me, and they walked up to me and they said, Jeremy, they gave you the win for Game 7, and Bumgarner the save. My wife and I started crying because I wanted Bum to have the win. I thought it would have been great for him to have another win. It would have been a record. But I was going to take it because there's not a lot of Game 7 winners in World Series history. There's not a lot of Game 7s. On a field that I grew up on and started my major league career on, walking off a champion, sealing up my career, and having some of the greatest numbers in playoff history, and they took my stuff and put it in the Hall of Fame. And I'm able to do and have all those things for one reason, because I understood what it meant to succeed in pressure situations because of the leadership that I had above me, and now I'm able to lead in my situations and encourage guys because I'm now leading that same way. So I encourage you guys to think about some of those things today, and thank you for having me. Appreciate it.